Damilola, thanks very much indeed for joining us. First of all, what sort of changes have you seen, if any, since the original creation of the SDGs and that idea?
Well, one of the key changes I've seen is just businesses and communities and governments being a lot more cautious of what the SDG means and knowing that globally we all have to come together. And more importantly, we're all interconnected. So it's not just a problem in sub-Saharan Africa, right? The problem in sub-Saharan Africa affects Europe as well. So those are the key things. And I think that's what's the beauty about the SDGs. It really is a fully inclusive process.
Do you think they were pitched right? I mean, you've always got to find that balance between what's doable and what's worth doing.
It's always hard until you just start doing it, right? And I think that that's what happened. Let's just have a plan. Let's start it. And then you can do the lessons learned as you come on. But if you don't have anything at all and you don't have everybody working towards something, you won't really know what the issues are. So we can clearly see now that energy, and especially SDG 7, access to modern sustainable energy, is a big factor of other SDGs working. So I think what's happening now is the evolution of how we see other SDGs being connected and how, well, you have to achieve this before you move into achieve others. But that's the beauty of it. It's the true innovation that actually brings to the whole system.
And as time goes on, it gets more and more important that businesses respond to this.
Of course. I mean, what this situation that we're in, and while we're talking over a screen instead of in person, has shown with the pandemic is that we're all connected, right? And we cannot do this without businesses and private sector. It's not just about achieving an SDG. It's also about economic growth. It's also about climate change. And for that, the businesses are key. And that's why we're really looking forward in terms of, at the UN, in terms of the high level dialogue on energy that we're having in September, which brings together actors from government and the private sector to all come together and say, look, we have this problem in terms of energy. This is how it affects so many other SDGs. How are we going to all come together and resolve it?
And hanging over all this is the UN Global Vision of 2045, and that's what we're all aiming towards with the different initiatives. So we're along this initiative some way now. Are there things you think have been missed out or still need to be done or need to be accelerated in order to get us to that global vision?
Well, one of the key things, like I've mentioned before, is energy, right? So it's really important to realize that you cannot achieve net zero by 2050 if you don't achieve energy access by 2030. And sometimes people don't put that together. Globally, there's still 789 million people who don't have access to energy. If you put that to today's terms, that means all those people, even in a pandemic, just can't stay at home, right? Because they don't have access to the basic needs for them to even survive. So I think energy is one of those things that definitely has to be accelerated.
No, I mean, it's got an enormous part to play in all that. 60% of the climate change problem seems to be put towards energy and energy production. How are you seeing businesses respond to that, particularly in terms of goal number 7, the affordable and clean energy? How are you seeing businesses progressing in that so far worldwide?
I mean, a lot of businesses have changed their practices in terms of, yes, they want to get to net zero by 2050. However, it's more in terms of governments and businesses coming together and saying, look, we have this global problem. There isn't enough capital. How do we go into the key countries that actually need this to start off with? So it's trying to educate the private sector as well, saying that this is where you have to go. And you have to see it as an opportunity, not just as a challenge, right? There's a lot of money to be made for these companies who do this, but governments also have to make sure they have the strong policies and regulatory frameworks to allow people to come.
Are you picking up in your work signals that that kind of international coherence is gathering some sort of momentum?
Well, yes. I mean, with the COP26, I co-chair on the energy transition campaign, and that's another thing that's really quite cool, because before the focus used to be on clean energy, just a certain set of countries, and they have to transition. But now what we're seeing is that the energy access conversation is within the energy transition conversation. But you now have African representatives, Southeast Asian representatives, or because we all have kind of common problems and we can learn from each other.
Damilola Ogunnbiyi, thanks very much indeed for talking to us today.